First of all, you've got to get their attention, and don't try to teach it all at once. I think osmosis sets in. I like to show things one day without running in drills on it, to show it, explain it, and show it, and then the next day I start working on it in various drills to teach it. Just a short period of time, and then repeat and repeat. I think repetition is the fourth law of learning, and we need to do that. But first, we have to have the explanation beforehand, and we have to have the imitation of the explanation, and then we have to have the criticism of the imitation until they get it right, and then repetition and repetition. So you have to be patient and take time and recognize that all those under your supervision are not the same. They're all different. The good Lord in His infinite wisdom created us all different. There's no formula for teaching things to everyone. There's some things that may help to some degrees, but it's necessary for a teacher to analyze everyone under your supervision and try to give them the treatment they earn and deserve. They won't be alike, and you will be imperfect, and you will be wrong at times. But as I used to tell my players, if I'm wrong too much, I'll be out of here, and there'll be somebody in my place. Generally speaking, I wanted to have an offense that was going to be reasonably effective, regardless of how they're playing. Letting the defense take advantage of what the defense uses, whether it be man-to-man, switching man-to-man, or whether it be a zone of any type. They all have strengths, they all have weaknesses, and you can exploit certain weaknesses according to the personnel you have. Of course, I wanted to know something about the other teams. You probably read, and it's true, that I scouted other teams probably less than any other coach that I know. But that doesn't mean that I never scouted, and that doesn't mean that I wouldn't know something about them. If we're playing a team, I'll know the coach is, I'll know for whom he possibly played. I'll know his possible style that he's going to use both offensively and defensively, and I'll prepare accordingly. For example, if I know a team is using a zone in our 5-on-5 work during the few days before we play them, I won't even mention to our players while we're doing it, but I'll put a little more time against that type of defense and various things that we do that without mentioning the team. Bill Walton, who is rather unusual in many things, and being facetious, he said we used to have the managers, when we were getting dressed for the game, we'd have a manager run out and get a program so we could find out who we were playing that particular game. Well, that's going a bit, but I mentioned our opponents very little. I'm just constantly concentrating on our strengths and weaknesses, trying to keep our strengths going and to try to correct our weaknesses as much as possible. I used almost one particular out of bounds in crucial situation for years, just the one, but I would never use it in a non-conference game because we had to win the conference to get in the tournament. I would never use it in a conference game that we're winning handily or that we're losing by too much. I would save it and would use it only at a crucial point when we really needed something. I would do it at that particular time. But otherwise, no, but occasionally I had some players that were, I think, maybe exceptional shooters, and I would set up a play and run for the inbounder. Because I wanted to have the same inbounder always, but if he was a real good jump shooter, I went someplace to free him coming out, because oftentimes it's easy to free the inbounder because they're not looking so much. And when I had Louis Alcindor or Bill Walton, some of the Paul players of that type, and stationed them pretty close, we know we're going to get the ball in pretty well because they have to float against them or we'll give it, so that's going to leave somebody open. And if we get it to somebody that they're leaving open and they look for him right back because your man's probably floating to help on him, and they give it to you, you can give it right back to him, and sometimes you can pick some up. So things like that we would try to do. Good point guard that can recognize defenses and handle the ball, enable you to take advantage of the errors that the defense might make, is just invaluable. And you don't have many of them. It's hard to find them almost any level. But I believe next to a great post player, I believe in a smart point guard that can see the situation, size it up, and get the ball to the right people at the right time. I think that'd be the second most valuable asset you can have. And I think you'll find that most coaches that I know would agree with me on that. And if you have players that won't work within the framework of the team, put them on the bench, and they'll come around. If they don't come, if they're real good and you don't want to put them on there, you say, well, he just, I can't do it, I can't bench him. He may be a player that's giving you a lot from a statistic point of view, but generally speaking, players of that type take away statistics from others. I had a great forward one year, undoubtedly the greatest physically forward I had, and he didn't start at all. And he'd say to me, how come I'm not starting ahead of the other players? I said, you haven't learned to play the team concept. Until you do, that's going to happen. Well, I think his last 2 years at UCLA, he was the finest collegiate forward in the country. But for 1 year, he was an individual player. And he'd had fine statistics if I had played him. There's no question in my mind about it. But I don't believe our other players would have had nearly as the statistics that they had. And I'm convinced from the scrimmages that we'd have in practice that I was right on that particular thing. Well, first of all, they must have a lot of patience. Must have patience. And teaching basketball is just like teaching math or English or something else. You have to understand individuals under your supervision and give them the treatment they earn and deserve. You won't like them all the same. They won't like you all the same. Love them all the same, and let them come to know through the time that you do care for them as individuals. And not just because they're athletes and ball players for you. As individuals, be interested in their personal things. You be interested in their family and so on. And you can't just tell them that. You have to really show them that. And if you do, they will respond, in my opinion. As my dad said, never try to be better than somebody else. Learn from others, because you'll never know a thing that you don't learn from somebody else. And never cease trying to be the best you can be. But I think for the most part, my basic philosophy would stay the same. The main thing is not X's and O's. It's the three things that are the heart of my pyramid. Get them in the best possible condition. Teach them to not only properly but quickly execute the fundamentals, and insist that they play together as a team. And I think that would be true 50 years ago, and I think it'll be true 50 years from now. Those are the main ingredients you need.